How do you overhead in a combo effectively or efficiently? This is one of several comments I got on the last few videos that I've made about overhead tech, and it's a great question. And I could just give you a list of combos that I recommend, but you can probably tell by the length of this video that that's not what I'm going to do. As the old adage goes, give a man a fish and he'll eat for a day. Teach a man to fish and he'll be goated with Spider-Man combos. So in this video, I'm going to teach you the fundamental principles of combos, and I'll give you a list of my recommendations at the end, but I really do recommend you watch through the whole video. Whether you plan on labbing combos yourself or not, this is going to give you a greater appreciation and understanding of how Spider-Man works. And we'll break this down into simple steps. What we need for building combos is we first need to know what our tools are, and then we need to know how they work together. Once we've set that up, I'll take you through a few examples of how I would workshop a combo, and at the very end I'll give you my recommendations for which combos you should learn and use. So firstly, what are your tools? There are a bunch of actions that Spider-Man can take within his combos, and each of these actions have particular strengths and weaknesses. So let's really quickly walk through Spider-Man's kit and have a look at what these strengths and weaknesses are. Before we touch on any cooldowns or attacks, the first thing to note is Spider-Man's double jump. A lot of the time you don't even have to think about this, but it is an important action within some combos. And that's because it helps you to control your movement when you're doing mid-air combos, and because it gives you an overhead slam instead of a punch. And as we're about to see, punches and overhead slams both have strengths and weaknesses. So sometimes you'll want an overhead slam, but sometimes you'll just want the punch. The nice thing about the double jump is it's pretty much free to add into any combo. If you're using it to set up an overhead slam, the overhead slam actually can start up its animation on the very same frame as the double jump, which means it's really not difficult to figure out where in a combo it should go most of the time. The only downside is it's slightly annoying to track when you do and don't have a double jump. At least it's more annoying than other abilities, which are just simply on a cooldown. Next is the punch, Spider-Man's standard basic attack. This attack is fast, and it'll rip off a tracer for a lot of damage. The downside to Spider-Man's punch is basically just that it's got a really low range of 3 meters. Since Spider-Man has the same walking speed as everyone else, it can be pretty difficult to keep people in your range. After 2 punches, you get Spider-Man's next action, a kick. Really, the only good thing I have to say about the kick is that its 4 meter range is slightly more lenient than the punch. You would think that its extra damage would be nice, but really, you never notice it, because pretty much any combo that you can come up with that involves a kick would hit all of the same damage thresholds if you just used a punch instead. And so that means that since the kick is also slower than a punch, and you've got to set it up by throwing 2 punches beforehand, it usually just isn't worth it. Which brings us to the overhead slam. This has an even more lenient hitbox than the kick. It's got the same maximum range, but it's more forgiving as you get closer. Not to mention, this does 50 damage, which does push it over some damage thresholds. The downsides are that it's very slow, even slower than the kick, and it can be a little bit difficult to set up, because you've got to do something like double jumping or swinging to get the overhead in the first place, and just the time that it takes to do that can sometimes be long enough for people to move out of your range. But those particular weaknesses means that it makes for a pretty good opener. If you can sneakily hit your opponent with this as the first hit in a combo, then you can deal a lot of damage without giving them much time to react. Next is the tracer, or the web cluster. This is absolutely crucial to Spider-Man's kit. You need these to do any meaningful damage. As we're about to see, these are great for animation cancelling, which speeds up your combos, and weaving them into your combos massively increases your damage output. The only thing I'd really call a downside about this is you really can't spam it, which isn't really a downside because you can't spam anything in Spider-Man's kit, but someone who's new to Spider-Man might see he has a projectile and think, oh, I can just blast people down from range. But as we both know, that doesn't work. Moving on to the first piece of utility, we've got the swing. And yes, this is very, very useful for combos. Much like the tracer, it's really good for cancelling animations and speeding up your combos. And it's also usually preferable to a double jump for getting an overhead slam, because a double jump moves you up and away from your opponent, where a swing doesn't have to. That said, you need your swings for movement, so if you don't cancel them, it's really expensive. But a web which is cancelled is slower than a web which isn't, so there's a trade-off to be made. Then you've got a web whiff, which looks like the same thing as a swing, but really it behaves so differently that I class it as its own action. This is when you shoot a web in the air or towards something that's too far away to reach. Since it never connects to the wall, it's not going to use up one of your charges and you don't have to cancel it. Its downside is really just that it's super situational. You're not always going to be outside or somewhere that you can whiff a web, and you're also not always going to have a great reason to do it over just using a regular swing, but it is necessary for something like the unique 3-hit combo, and just because of that alone I think it's worth considering as its own action. Our next action is Get Over Here. This is super strong. It CCs your enemy and it displaces them. So even outside the context of a combo, this is really good for making your opponent uncomfortable. And within a combo, it can be a great way to slow down your opponent's counter attacks. It can be a great way to move them into your range instead of having to go to them. And it can even be used to take them off of the ground so that they can't run away from your combo. And we'll workshop a combo which does this a little later. That said, it can be a bit difficult to aim. It's got a reasonably long cooldown of 8 seconds, and it sort of CCs yourself as well. You're a little limited in what you can do while your opponent is being pulled to you, so if there are other people nearby, you can turn yourself into a bit of a sitting duck. And the other side of that coin is Get Over Here targeting, and this one's way easier to use, having its auto lock on, and it's super easy to chain into an uppercut, and does 50 damage as opposed to Get Over Here's 25. That said, this one puts you at a lot more risk. Your opponent only gets briefly stunned as you kick them at the end of the attack, whereas your movement is locked the entire duration of the pull. And of course, it also shares the long cooldown of the regular Get Over Here. Then the uppercut. This is a high damage attack with a massive range that can hit multiple targets. This attack is really, really good. The only downside is how it moves your opponents upwards at basically the same speed as yourself, and so if you just let the animation play out, you're pretty easy to shoot back. And finally, the team up ability of the symbiote. It's just solid all round. It's got great damage, you can throw it in at the end of basically any combo, and it gives you iframes. Literally the only downside to this is the fact that its cooldown is so long. You could say the fact that it hits people away from you and out of your range is also a downside, but if you want to avoid that, you can just put it at the end of your combo instead, so I don't really consider this a downside at all. Alright, now we've got a pretty good grasp on what actions we have to work with. So now what? You could just start chaining these together with Reckless Abandon, but in order to get the most value out of our actions, we have to look at one very important technique, and that's animation cancelling. You may have noticed, if you punch, or you kick, or overhead or uppercut, there's a bunch of time that you're still playing through the animation, and you're locked out of other attacks. But you may have also noticed that you're not locked out of all attacks, because some of these animations can be cancelled into other animations. So let's quickly walk through which animations can be cancelled by which. The double jump is pretty straightforward. Basically anything can quote-unquote cancel it, but really the animations often just play over the top, so you basically don't have to worry about it when you're timing your combos. The only things to note are that it will cancel a punch or a kick, and it's also worth knowing that you cannot double jump while you're using the symbiote. Now the punch and the kick are cancelled by everything. Literally everything. Tracer, swing, Get Over Here, uppercut, symbiote, all of it. And the overhead is the same way, except that you can't cancel an overhead with a double jump. So when you're doing a double overhead, you can use your double jump during the first overhead, and they'll still just play back to back. You'll just get this little bounce through the air. Tracers can be cancelled by anything that isn't a primary attack. So you can cancel it with a swing, Get Over Here, uppercut, or a symbiote. Web swings and web whiffs can be cancelled by tracers, Get Over Here, uppercut, and symbiote. Get Over Here and Get Over Here targeting can be cancelled with web swings or with the symbiote. For all of the animation cancels that we've listed so far, it's possible to cancel it too early and to stop the damage itself from coming out. And you especially don't want to do it too early for Get Over Here targeting, because if you cancel it before the kick happens, it won't do any damage. And the symbiote can cancel these animations at any time, so it's kind of dangerous. The uppercut is only cancelled by a web swing and a symbiote, and the web swing cannot cancel it before it's dealt its damage. Sometimes timing the web swing to come out at the right time can be difficult. If you hit it too early, it won't come out at all, so you kind of end up spamming it. So what you can do is you can put your web swing on a scroll wheel, and that way after uppercutting, you can just scroll and it'll come out as early as possible. The symbiote, once again, can cancel this as early as you like, so it absolutely can stop the uppercut damage from coming out. The symbiote itself is only cancelled by a web swing. There's one funny little interaction in here that's worth knowing. When you do a web zip into a roll, the game will still think you're in a web swing state until that roll animation ends. And for whatever reason, using your symbiote doesn't end it early. You can't use another web swing until this state has ended, so you can't cancel the symbiote with a web swing as early as you might like to. That said, since the symbiote likes to go at the end of the combo, this probably isn't a problem most of the time. Alright, we know all of the animation cancels now, and so we want to be cancelling as much stuff in our combo as possible to save as much time as we can, because in these combos, minimizing the time to kill is everything. So let's workshop a few examples. The combo that I think the game really leads you towards is an opening of Tracer, Get Over Here targeting, and uppercut. It all just chains in super easily. Once you hit that first Tracer, it's basically impossible to miss. So I refer to this as the bread and butter combo. That said, this combo is not enough to kill, so our job is going to be to figure out how can we add in the extra damage we need. Well, one option would be to double jump after the uppercut and then use an overhead slam. Yeah, that's not too bad, but as I said, the double jump moves you away from the target you're trying to hit, so there are a lot of times that they'll get out of your range. I find that almost any time that you uppercut in a combo, you want to cancel the uppercut with a swing and then cancel the swing with a tracer. This keeps us closer to our target and increases the damage of our combo significantly. So now our combo looks like Tracer, Get Over Here targeting, uppercut, swing, tracer, overhead. And that's pretty good. But it actually turns out that if you're fighting a 250 HP enemy and they're not getting any healing, you're actually doing a lot more damage than you have to. And ending with an overhead is a little bit slow, so if you only need to do 250 damage, then why not just replace the overhead slam at the end with another tracer? And this works, and this is a little bit faster. And you might be going, oh, there's no animation cancel here. Why don't we cancel the tracer with a swing, then cancel the swing with a tracer? And on paper, that does look faster. But it turns out that this doesn't actually work. The tracers seem to have their own internal clock, which means that even if you weave these cancels together, you can't actually get that second tracer out any faster. So for 250 health opponents, we've got Tracer, Get Over Here targeting, uppercut, swing, tracer, tracer. But hold on, maybe we can't speed up double tracer with any cancels, but what if we split these tracers apart? Well, what you could do is you could insert the tracer between the Get Over Here and the uppercut instead. And just by experimenting in the practice range, I found that Get Over Here targeting into tracer is made faster by weaving a swing into the middle. You've just got to be careful not to cancel it too early and to cut off the damage of the Get Over Here targeting. In all of our earlier combos, I'm just not convinced that the swing makes the Get Over Here targeting into the uppercut any faster, so that's why I didn't mention it before. But all of that means that once we've moved that last tracer in between those two actions, what you get is Tracer, Get Over Here targeting, swing, tracer, uppercut, swing, tracer. And I really can't recommend this combo. It's pretty difficult, and if you mess it up and cancel some of your damage, it's super punishing. But this is sort of the ideal expansion of the bread and butter combo. At least it is if you don't have a symbiote to use. Another route you could take is to get the overhead faster by burning a web swing and not cancelling it with a tracer. Now this is more expensive and it's not as fast as in the last combo, but it is faster than that other bread and butter combo which ends with 2 tracers. The next idea I want to look at is the idea of pulling an opponent up into the air. If you use Get Over Here and follow it up with an uppercut, you can sort of juggle your opponent in the air and make it difficult for them to escape. So let's expand off of this, because this isn't enough damage on its own. You'll quickly find out that it's a little bit difficult to stay in the air if you just do these 2 actions, so inserting a double jump between the Get Over Here and the uppercut can be useful for hang time. And you'd also really like to have a tracer on your opponent when you use the uppercut for that extra damage. So let's say after our opponent arrives, we're going to cancel the last little bit of the Get Over Here animation with a swing into a tracer. So now we've got Get Over Here, double jump, swing, tracer, uppercut. And they've still got just a little bit of health left, so let's cancel that uppercut the same way we did before, with a swing and a tracer. And now if it's a 250 health opponent, we can just go for another tracer, or in general, we can say we'll go for an overhead slam, which will deal a lot more damage. This final version belongs to a family of combos, sometimes called yo-yo combos. icegawd has done a lot of work sort of expanding the combo tree. You'll also sometimes hear this referred to as a sky yoink. One last, shorter example. If you know about the fame stack, which is when you quickly hit Get Over Here targeting and uppercut almost at the same time so that they play simultaneously, then you might wonder, what's the quickest way to turn this into a kill? Well, in order to even do this in the first place, you have to hit your opponent with a tracer. So let's start with tracer into fame stack, and now we just need a little bit more damage to finish this off. So we could either end this combo by a swing cancel into 2 tracers, or a more popular option is to open the combo with an overhead slam. And both of these will kill opponents with 250 HP. Alright, hopefully that's enough examples. Hopefully it makes sense sort of how you would take an idea and develop it into a full combo. So to wrap this all up, What combos would I recommend? Well, before I recommend any combos at all, I will say that you can't always go for a combo. If there are a lot of people who are going to be looking at you, you usually just can't afford to stick around for long enough to combo someone. What you should be doing is tagging people with tracers, getting in, using an uppercut, getting out. Put on pressure, soften them up. If the healers drop the ball and you manage to get some kills, great. But in the early stages of a fight, assuming the other team is doing their job, you're just not going to be able to get any combos off. As the pressure mounts on the other team, that's when you're more likely to get the chance to go for a full combo. Well, that or if you manage to catch a flanker or someone coming back from spawn, catch someone alone, then combo them till your heart's content. So when you get the chance, what do I recommend? Well, that bread and butter combo that we workshopped, I very much recommend that. That's tracer, get over here targeting, uppercut, swing, tracer, tracer. It's super strong, and since it works off of that basic bread and butter, what you can do is you can go in for the first part of the combo, even in the earlier stages of a fight, and then if people start to turn to look at you, just leave, bail, you don't have to finish the combo. Of course, if you've got a Venom on your team, then tracer, get over here targeting, uppercut, symbiote. It's a classic, it's tried and true, it kills 250 exactly. Just be warned that the damage fall off on the tracer means that if you're engaging from a long distance, you might not get the damage to kill. And so if this happens, or if you're fighting an enemy with 275 health, you can add another tracer at the end by cancelling the symbiote with a swing and cancelling that with a tracer. So there's another great combo. Of course, overhead tracer fame stack is also great. The yo-yo or the sky yoink is really good, and in fact, if you get good at this, you can pull someone away from their team, which makes it a little bit more likely that you get to kill them before their team figures out what's going on. It is kind of tricky though, so you've definitely got to practice this one in the range. Then if you just want fast time to kill and you have a reliable way of getting close to your opponent, you can use the good old trusty tracer punch, tracer uppercut. It's just really fast, it's really good. You should use it when you get the chance. And if you're struggling to get in the range of that first punch, what you could always do is you could pre-tracer them, use get over here, and then punch, tracer, uppercut. It sort of loses part of the appeal of that last combo because get over here is so strong, and any combo that can get a kill without it is therefore good because you might want to save it for another combo, or it might be on cooldown from your last combo. But hey, it's another option, and I certainly wouldn't say that it's a bad option. So give those combos a go, workshop some of your own combos. If you come up with something new or interesting, leave it in the comments, send it to me, or join Fame's Discord and send it there. We'll check it out, we'll discuss it. If you've got any other ideas for videos that you'd like to see me make, please do let me know. And hey, if you've made it this far, I'd really appreciate a like and a subscription. YouTube locks their monetization features behind an 1,000 subscriber barrier. Clearing that barrier would make it a lot easier to justify sort of putting a little bit more time into these videos. They are super time consuming to make, so all of your supportive comments and your likes and your subscriptions have been so appreciated. But anyways, that's all I've got for you for now. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.